Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. Had yourself a nice, relaxing, or productive weekend. And just trying to find my music here. Trying to find my music. All right. All right. So I was just doing some of that research about, SEO. What's up, King Solar Power? I was doing SEO research for YouTube videos and trying to sort out, how best to expand people's ability to see what I'm doing and that sort of thing. And I think my music might be just a little loud. And so in that search, I came across this guy here, and it's PsycHacks, and he's a relationship. I guess he's a psychologist, but he focuses on relationships. So I was looking at his stuff and came across this one about why women don't apologize. And I watched about the first 20 seconds of it and realized, okay, this is going to be a good one to review. Because a lot of these like psychology guys, they understand the mind from a textbook perspective, and that is all well and good. But if you're not interacting with enough people outside of the clinical setting, then you're not going to get enough. You're not going to get enough feedback. You're not going to get that boots on the ground sort of real deal understanding of human behavior. And so this guy has a great understanding, I think, of human behavior from a textbook perspective, but he's got some shit to do. So let's see here about oh Jesus Christ, all this shit about Google Chrome settings and sharing and all that stuff. So let's see if I can share this. Oh, here we go. All right. So let me mute my music, and we're going to get into this video here.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraband, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology.
Let me know if
and
you
the topic
can't
of
hear
today's
this
short
shit.
talk is why women don't apologize. I am 40 years old, and I think I can count on one hand the number of apologies I've received from women in my life. And that does not mean that I've only had relationships with honest, well-behaving, high-integrity women over the past 4 decades. What it does mean is that women seem to find it very hard to apologize for bad behavior.
Yeah, especially if you're just sitting there expecting it to happen. So guys, a lot of times, just generally speaking, we will know that we fucked up, and a lot of times we will step forward and say, hey, you know what? I fucked up. But a lot of women don't really do that. That's not part of just the way they've been raised. Accepting responsibility and accountability for their behavior is just not something that's trained into them from a young age. And they're also very good at just the softer, more subversive parts of life and human interaction. And a lot of times that comes with, moxie and deception and bending truths and lying to oneself and all that other stuff. And a lot of guys just don't operate that way. So he's coming at it already from like a faulty position. But of course, you're not going to hear apologies if you're not going to check a woman on her behavior. So let's continue.
And this is too bad for 2 reasons. In the first place, apologizing for something you did wrong is like an interpersonal slam dunk. Almost everybody will forgive you for being wrong. Not everybody will forgive you for being right, but almost everybody will forgive you for being wrong, especially if it means that it makes the other person right. And in the second place, apologies just seem to matter more to men. And using words to solve a relationship problem is actually a very easy and inexpensive solution, all things being equal. So, ladies, one of the best ways to earn respect and raise your estimation in someone else's mind is to admit wrongdoing when it's appropriate.
No, not admit wrongdoing. It's like, listen, if you're the dude in the relationship and you are overseeing, you are running things, you're kind of making sure things have a certain type of structure. You are responsible for these things that happen. So if there's some sort of wrongdoing, whether you fucked up or she's fucked up, or maybe not a fuck up, but there's just something a little off, that's like a little off trajectory, it's up to you to bring it to attention and say, hey, this is messed up. Even if it's something that you've done, don't wait for her to come to you when you know you screwed up, right? You know you've dropped the ball on something. Don't wait for that to get like snowball into something to where then she has to bring it to you. That's not leading. Okay, taking responsibility for your own thoughts, words, and actions, that's leading. And this includes hers. And a lot of guys be like, well, she's a grown woman, like I don't want to have to take care of her, she's not a child, she's a grown woman. Yeah, but you were not raised the way she is. You don't have the minds that she has. She doesn't process things in the same way that you process things. It's your program, right? So bring it to her attention. When something has gone awry, you bring it to her attention and say, hey, you sit her down and say, hey, listen, this is not right. The way you're talking or what you've done, this is not right. And you explain what she's done. And if there needs to be some sort of punishment for it, then there is. If there doesn't need to be a punishment, not all wrongdoings require that, then you implement that. But there needs to be some sort of bringing to attention of the action. All right, let's get back in here. Listen to this idiot.
And of course, to not apologize where there was no wrongdoing and the other person just disagrees or disapproves of your actions. Check out my episode, If You've Done Nothing Wrong, Don't Apologize, for the flip side of this talk. Today I'm going to talk about why it is so hard for women to apologize. But before I do,
usually because they don't respect you, you don't have a program, you have no rules, and you're not upholding them.
Please remember to like this episode and subscribe to this channel. It takes less than a second, costs you nothing, and it's a great way to help spread this message. So if you like what you're hearing, then please do the thing. And
a lot of times when it comes to checking, because most guys can tell when there's something going on that he does not approve of. He sees it, he hears it, he feels it, and he knows. But a lot of times guys don't check behavior. Why? Because they're afraid of upsetting her, and they're afraid of losing her. So they're afraid of confrontation, they're afraid of conflict resolution, and they're afraid of losing her approval and losing access to her body. So they don't bring these things up. They don't try to check behavior or bring awareness to certain behaviors because there's a lot of fear of loss in there. So they justify it in their heads. They pretend that it didn't happen. They say, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. They let things slide. And then what that does is it erodes, because it's not like she's unaware. Okay, she knows. And she also knows that you did nothing about it. And so what that does is it condones further behavior. And what that happens is this erosion also erodes the structural integrity of what you have going on. And I mean, there's many ways that the structural integrity can be eroded. This is one of them. And this leads to a loss of respect. It may not translate to straight up disrespect, because that's doing actions that are they're directed at creating disrespect. Okay. Loss of respect doesn't necessarily mean that. Okay. So this can lead to loss of respect, not necessarily disrespect, but it can. All right.
if you're thinking about going to grad school, then be sure to check out my GRE self-study product at stellargre.com.
Okay, whatever, dude.
You can use the code PSYCH for 10% plans. Now, the reason why it is so hard for women to apologize,
Let's hear it,
is that there seems to be a difference in what men and women consider to be the problem. From a man's perspective, the problem is some behavior for which he believes the woman to be at fault. And as a consequence of that behavior, he is now angry and upset. The behavior is the problem, and the emotional response is the consequence. And in his mind, the solution to this problem is acknowledgement of fault and behavioral change. And I don't think that's how a lot of women see it.
Okay, acknowledgement of fault does not equate to behavioral change. All that's doing is saying, like, so you have this guy, he robs a corner store, he gets caught, they say, hey, you broke the law, you robbed the corner store. He is acknowledges that he did something wrong. That's not necessarily going to stop him from robbing again because he wants to rob. Okay, there's incentives to rob. there's there's a belief that I won't get caught. So there's a lot of things. Just having acknowledgement of wrongdoing does not equate to stopping of unwanted behavior. All behavior is learned. Okay, now there's that nature versus nurture thing. So some behaviors are part of nature, but most behaviors, I believe, are nurtured. They're learned behaviors, which means they can be unlearned. Okay, or new behaviors can replace old behaviors. So that said, you cannot have change unless they are addressed and then used with strategy in order to change that behavior. You can't just say, hey, I don't like that, and then it just poof, it goes away. Like, you made me mad, poof, it goes away. That's not how it works. But that's a lot what a lot of people think.
From a woman's perspective, the problem is not the identified behavior. The problem is that the man is angry and upset. And as ridiculous as that might seem to a man, there's actually some validity to this perspective. Like, in a court of law, a breach of contract by itself is generally not actionable. You have to also prove that some harm resulted as a consequence of the breach. No harm, no foul. So it's the harm, the anger and upset, that is the foul from this perspective. And in her mind, the solution to this problem is changing the way he feels. If she can succeed in modifying the man's emotional response, then on some level, that would solve the problem.
And that, for many situations, is how you can deal with women. There can be a problem, just say like a problem in life. She gets upset by it. You can then take the feeling that's a result of that problem, alter the feeling, and then the problem isn't solved, but they now just feel better. And that is, I mean, that's a very useful skill that I think a lot of people should learn. But he's describing exactly how, women are processing these things and actually how you can go about doing it from a man's perspective, because that's the way they deal with their own situations.
And that's why you encounter the kind of interpersonal strategies that you do with women in relationships under these circumstances. Rather than apologies and accountability, you typically see a number of emotional coping strategies, like
Mhm.
trying to cheer you up, or making your favorite meal, or sending you a funny meme, or simply allowing enough time to pass for everything to blow over.
And this is why I'm always harping on not letting your emotions to be part of the program. Like, how you feel about rules is irrelevant. Okay, so it's like the police or lawyers or whatever, they have to hold up certain laws. They may not actually personally believe in them, but they took an oath to uphold certain laws. Their feelings on the matter are irrelevant. So when you have rules in your program and you have certain guidelines in which things are dealt with, that is the guiding light. How you feel when certain things in that are skewed or violated or broken, it doesn't really matter. Okay, yes, you're going to feel something. I mean, like, that's part of the human condition, but that cannot alter how you're dealing with it. Okay, it still needs to be calm. It still needs to be level-headed. Okay, because when you're operating that way, that's how you can make better decisions. Okay, and best how to deal with this situation. The thing with accountability, unless there is a high level of self-awareness, one usually cannot hold themselves accountable. That's why there's so many people who have people in their lives to hold them accountable, like friends and things like that. Okay. You, as the man, are there to hold her accountable based on the rules that you have, based on the principles that you have, based on the codes, based on the values, based on your constitution. This is the guiding light. This is the path which everything operates. So if you feel this way or that, fine, it's going to happen. But you cannot make that what moves things and what keeps things straight and narrow. It's the rules, it's the structure, it's the program.
All of these are strategies to reduce the man's felt experience of anger or upset. Do you understand? Women also notoriously use sex in this manner. Many years ago, I was out.
No, because if a woman misbehaves, she's not going to get sex. Hello, sex feels good for them too, right? Newsflash. So don't reward something pleasurable with something that doesn't feel good, or with bad behavior. Don't reward pleasurable experiences with bad behavior. It crosses the lines, okay? It confuses things. So I was again, I was on Clubhouse and we were talking about, some relationship stuff, and the topic got on to like how, like, men who are in relationships, how we deal with unruly behavior that we don't like, a broken rule, or just general misbehaving. And this one guy said that he would fuck the bad behavior out of her. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds poetic, okay, but that's actually giving a positive reward for unwanted behavior. So it doesn't exactly massage the message in there, okay? Because while you're fucking her brains out, she's not going to be thinking about what she did wrong. She's not going to think about how she offended you. She's not going to be thinking about the rule she broke. She's going to be thinking, well, about nothing if you're doing a good job, okay? She's going to be brainless. So that's not a good tactic, okay? And like I talked about this before, this example of, say, you've got a daughter and you tell your daughter, okay, I will give you $1. Say, like, young daughters, say, I'll give you $1 for every morning when you wake up that you straighten your bed, straighten your room before you go to school. And so, say one day she gets up, she makes her bed, or she straightens up her room, whatever, like that, no clothes lying around, toys are put away or whatever. And you notice it, and then she goes off to school. She comes home from school, comes to the kitchen, makes a snack, leaves a mess, and then you enter in and you go, oh, I just remembered, honey, I totally forgot to give you the $1 for the room that you cleaned up this morning. Here you go, take $1. Now, what's the problem with that scenario? The problem with that scenario is she then did something that, let's just say also that she's not allowed to leave a mess in the kitchen after making a snack. The issue here is that you're now, while it's not the right reward and behavior, okay, you're giving a reward after an unwanted behavior, which was the leaving a mess in the kitchen. So she leaves the mess, you remember to give the $1. What you're thinking is the $1 is for the made bed earlier in the day, but it's being psychologically and subconsciously coincided with the leaving of the mess. So now you're actually rewarding her for leaving a mess. So giving a positive outcome to a negative behavior. Following up right behind negative behavior was a positive outcome. So you don't want to do that because you're reinforcing behavior you don't want to see. So when you have behavior that you don't want to see, it needs to be addressed right away. And it doesn't have to be harsh, it doesn't have to be firm, it just has to be addressed. How you go about doing that is up to you as the man. Whatever your style is, whatever your rules are, whatever you've discussed with how these sort of things are dealt with, okay? Because everyone deals with things in a different way. I'm not going to tell you how to rule your kingdom, but I will say that there has to be a very short time between the behavior and how it's acknowledged and rectified. Okay? So keep that in mind.
for a drink with a woman I was dating,
Let
and
me
she
rewind
decided to
this just
take
a little bit.
something that with a woman I was use sex in this manner.
Right.
Many years ago, I was out for a drink with a woman I was dating, and she decided to take something that I said very much the wrong way. She quickly escalated and within seconds was crying and critical and withdrawn. It was fairly early in the dating process, so I was taken aback by how quickly this had escalated. However, as is my way, I didn't argue with her and gave her some time and space to emotionally equilibrate. Later that night, rather than apologizing for imputing to me something that I didn't intend, or owning up to the disproportionate intensity of her emotional reaction, or even acknowledging the episode at all, she just came into the room, took off all her clothes, and kind of laid herself in front of me. The feeling I had was that she was offering sex as a kind of peace offering to assuage my hurt feelings, rather than apologizing for her bad behavior. And in
Well, it sounds like that sounds like a very very strange situation where he says something unintended and she flips out as a result from that. Like she had a level 10 reaction to something that he was not intending for any of that. How she makes it over to his place after that and then is able to enter his space and then disrobe and then expect sex to happen, that is poor leadership. That is not managing your situation at all.
that moment, I unfortunately lost a lot of respect for this person because of what her behavior seemed to imply.
I wonder if he still fucked her though.
That if I could be distracted with a bit of sex, then we could all just move forward as if what just happened didn't happen. And I got up and slept on the couch in another room. That
Slept on the couch. What? Wait a second.
because of what her behavior seemed to imply. That if I could be distracted with a bit of sex,
Wait a second. I
then
gotta
we could
rewind this. I gotta rewind
assuage
this.
my hurt feelings rather than apologizing for her bad behavior. And in that moment, I unfortunately lost a lot as a kind of
I think
peace
he.
off
I
her
think
clothes
okay.
and kind of laid herself in front of me. The feeling I had was that she was offering sex as
Okay, I was checking to see if he said it laid herself in front of me on my bed or whatever. At this, so it's unclear whether he was at her place or at his place. But if it's at his place, what the fuck is he sleeping on the couch for? If it's at her place, what the fuck is he staying there for? If you lost respect for someone's behavior that you don't approve of and it's not your home, why are you sticking around? What the fuck?
And in that moment, I unfortunately lost a lot of respect for this
Oh.
person because of what her behavior seemed to imply. That if I could be distracted with a bit of sex, then we could all just move forward as if what just happened didn't happen. And I got up and slept on the couch in another room. That's an example of how women apologize with sex.
I think this was at her place because I think that if it was his home, he would have said, "I went to my living room," or I went to sleep on my couch." I think this was at her place.
Sex. So, men, if you're expecting an apology from your woman, I would advise you not to hold your breath. On the other hand, ladies, I would highly encourage you to consider apologizing when appropriate. Why? Because men respect people who take responsibility for themselves, and men very rarely receive apologies from women. So, this
And women will respect men who check poor behavior.
is an easy way that costs you nothing to quickly distinguish yourself from the vast majority of other women in a positive manner in the mind of a particular man. I guarantee that his estimation of you will increase as a result.
Whatever. That sounds like a bunch of shit right there. That sounds like a bunch of shit. Bro, there's it sounded to me like he was saying that you're never gonna hear let me just stop sharing this bullshit. You're never gonna hear an apology from a woman. And And then if you're just going to sit back and expect her to apologize, okay? Now, like that's just putting all the onus on her and then just crossing your fingers and then hoping, because that's what he was doing at the end. He was like, I advise you women, as though he was able to like get through to them just by saying, oh, I advise you to take this into consideration and apologize, and the guy will have a lot more respect for you. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, professor. You get respect by saying, "Hey, sit down. We're going to talk about this. You did this. You said this. This is in clear violation of XYZ. I've already talked to you about this, this, and this. There's now there's going to be this is going to be dealt with in whatever sort of way that that man sees fit. And hopefully, and this is the way it works, it has to be a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. So, in the same way with rewards, you're never going, like, if she, let's say you have an agreement that she is going to make breakfast for you every morning. Okay. After she does that for a month, you don't take a trip to Disney World. Okay. That's not a, that's not a fitting reward. Okay. The scales are unbalanced. In the same way, you don't want to, if you need to enact some sort of punishment, you're not going to give a punishment that is super high for a very small thing. Okay. So sometimes just a good, firm talking to or a scolding, like in my situation, writing lines or whatever the acceptable punishment for that action is, you don't want to make it super high, because that's going to introduce too much anxiety, fear, and all that sort of thing. You don't want your woman to fear you. Okay. Not your force. Okay. Really, it's fearing loss of your respect, loss of your approval of them. That's more important. But and then, that is acquired by standing on your square, by standing on a set of principles, by having a set of rules, and not really letting them bend or break, and being consistent about that. All right. Now, of course, like there's rules that are red light rules and there's yellow light rules. You know what I'm saying? We're like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And you're not going to be super hard nosed about it. And then there are other rules that are extremely hard nosed, very much a red light rule. Like, you don't fuck with this. And then that has to be dealt with accordingly. So, take it upon yourself to actually figure out what it is that's truly unacceptable, and things that are kind of on the fence. All right. Things that you're not going to, die on a hill over. Okay. So, no, don't wait for a woman to just kind of like catch your drift and like figure you out. Like, oh my gosh, he's upset about something. Let me dig in there and say, oh baby, like, what's wrong? You seem really upset. Did I do something wrong? Will you talk to me about it, please? Because I already feel really bad because you're so angry or because you're upset. And can you just talk to me and we'll figure it out? And whatever it is, I'm so sorry. And and I feel really bad. And like, already, I'm just gonna take full accountability. No, like, you have to bring it to their attention and say, listen, this is not gonna stand. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to hear this sort of behavior anymore. I don't want to see this behavior anymore. It's gonna stop, or this relationship is going to stop, or there's going to be some sort of punishment involved until you get the idea. So that's a sort of mentality that you have to maintain. You have to have this sort of situation, under constant observation. Okay, you can't just be hopeful that she's going to pick up on signals. Okay, that's a passive way of going about things. Okay. Don't like hope and pray and expect. Okay. Put out direct information, and then you can expect, because you've made clear instructions. Let's see here. Oh no. All right. Looks like I owe my girl a little bit of a little bit of post aftercare for something. Uh-oh. But yeah, so what I'm saying is that you can't, like, women will apologize. They will apologize if you hold them to something to apologize to. They're not going to just try to figure it out. That's not the way they're built, okay? So you have to bring it to them directly. All right. What's up, Nathan E? Good to see you, man. Brian the man. Nice to see you as well. Well, you said, Coach, he didn't fuck her. He may have gotten lucky, but didn't make the experience memorable. No, you got the wrong idea. There is no getting lucky. There is no getting lucky. Um, so you know, all right, one moment, one moment. All right, just wishing a good evening to my woman. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's no him getting lucky. Like women, I mean, if you know what you're doing, like, she's getting lucky. That's really how this works out. Um, and making it memorable, that's up to your skills and what you got going on. But yeah, that guy, man, like, see, that's the thing with psychologists. The psychology it's great. It's like a wonderful tool to understand. Um, and to help give you some sort of like frameworks if you're into that sort of thing, if you want to understand how the mind works through people who have like really gotten in there and parsed out details and finding patterns and things like that, like, it's a really cool subject to get into. But really, you can't sit there and apply that all to real world experiences, because the thing about psychology is that they don't know anything about game. They don't understand things that are beneath subconscious. They don't get that. They just know conscious, unconscious, subconscious, the id, the ego, the superego, and all that bullshit. They don't understand how in game there's layers that are in completely different dimensions. Like, they're not even like in the same dimension. And it comes from guys who just don't have it. So these guys who don't have it, they don't have that experience, and they're these PhD guys, and they're writing these books, and they're even like beyond the collegiate level, they're writing books that you can buy in the bookstore and so on. But these guys are not gained up guys. They don't have a whole lot of experience that they've learned from, that they've gained a lot of wisdom about, especially about themselves when interacting with women. So um, you know, uh, they're deeply unsatisfied in terms of that real world experience, and they can't extrapolate any real data from that. So they look to studies, they look to other people before them who have done a lot of different work, and then they kind of bring it in, and then they kind of regurgitate it, sort of like what happens on YouTube, where people are just taking from other people and then making it their own. And you see this a lot in the manosphere spaces and the red pill spaces. They just kind of churn things out over and over and over, and it's the same shit, right? So it's a lot. It's similar to that. It's a lot. It's a lot like that in the academia world, and yes, they've got their controlled studies and stuff. But guess what? Look around you. Life is not anywhere near a controlled study. There's a shit ton of variables, man. There's a shit ton of variables. It's like when they're having that study say about, like, a woman's behavior with this kind of stimuli. Well, yeah, well, what happens that if earlier that day her dog got hit by a car, or she had lost her job, or she had just gotten a promotion, or she's on her period, or she just had a really great conversation with her dad? All of these little things will have subtle shifts in how one handles a certain bit of information. But they can't write about that. There's so many variables that they have no control over that can affect outcomes that they can't possibly even write a paper about it, because the amount of variables involved with just one person processing something happening is overwhelming. Now, say you're doing a study between two people interacting, and the variables in two people's worlds coming together, there's so much data that it would be impossible to write anything at all. It would take you probably 10 years to write one paper, just to sift through all that data, and you might not even come into anything conclusive at all. So what they got to do is they got to cut out a shit ton of variables, tons of them. So you only have like a few, right? Just a few, like 3-4 variables. Then you can start, parsing down behavior into this narrow alleyway and go, oh, look, because you have this factor and this factor at play, this outcome happens, therefore these factors must be the culprit. And it's like, how are you coming? Oh, yeah, of course you're coming to that, because you've cut out all other variables and you're just localizing it down to just these few. Yeah, so you're basically creating this scenario for the thing you already expect to have the outcome. Like, that's not good science, okay? Like, honestly, I don't think that a lot of psychology is useful in the real world, because just human behavior is just too nuanced. There's way too much going on with us. And that's just like the stuff we walk around with. Then you include environmental factors of like people and non-people. All the environmental factors, it all plays a role. So it's like, how the fuck are you coming out here and saying, oh, well, women who have, under 5 sex partners, they have happier marriages, or they're less likely to divorce. It's like, but what else was going on in those people's lives? What else? There's tons of variables. Or the woman who's had like 10, now she's more likely to get divorced. But it's really sex partners. That's the only thing you're looking at. That's the only variable. When you have no idea the tons and tons and tons of shit. But it's like, no, we need to come up with this explanation. I have to feel better about this. I have to figure it out because I need an answer. I can't understand why my wife left me. Oh my gosh, there it is. She slept with 7 people before me. It's got to be that, right? I'm telling you, these guys who are doing this shit, they don't know what the fuck is going on. These aren't like, I would like to see pimps make studies. Like, that's something I would really like to read. Right? Because they get to see aspects of female human behavior in ways that most guys won't. That's a study that I would like to read. That would be amazing. So yeah, put your questions in the chat if you got any. I appreciate you guys coming through and watching the show. Let me just put on some beats. Get some sound up in here. Oh, come on. Play. There we go. All right. Yeah. That's little slow beats. I like this shit. Lo-fi. So yeah, with apologies, man, the guys who don't hear apologies, I dare I say it, because it just sounds like just way too simplified. They're just not men. They just don't have the respect that they wish they had. And so they lay it on her in their heads, right? Or if they're daring enough to sit down and say, listen, it would be really great if you would just take accountability and for when you do mess up, that you would just come forward and own up to it. And, you know, as a result, I'll have just so much more respect for you. That and just if you could do that, that would be great. Okay, women are not going to respond to that. What's up, King Ken? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, women are not going to respond to that. Like, it sounds good in a greeting card. It sounds good on a psychology YouTube channel, you know, because I'm sure, like, by the textbook, that's the way it makes sense. All right, when you're looking at the variables involved and you map it out and you go, okay, yeah, that makes sense according to the psychological algebra involved. But that's not real life. That is not real life. If you sit down your woman and say, listen, I'd appreciate it if you would apologize to me when you've screwed up, and then you just sit back, that's not going to work. That is not happening for shit. That's like, you know, when your kid screws up and you're like, I'm just not going to bring this to their attention because we talked about, you know, owning up to your shit. And so I'm just going to sit back and wait after they've screwed up, and they're going to come to me. Yeah, I have faith that they're just going to come to me when they screwed up, and they're going to sit down and say, hey, Daddy, I messed up. You know, I skipped class today or whatever. I failed my math quiz. You know, I'm really sorry about that, and you know, I'll do better next time. Do I still have your respect? Like, this, it's not gonna fucking work. No, you have to address that shit. You absolutely have to address it right away. So don't go you know, retroactively. Don't go retroactively dealing with this stuff. All right, that's not the way to go about it. You know, do not attempt to deal with this stuff retroactively. So what I mean by that is, say your woman does something, you know, off kilter, and you ignore it. You're like, it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. And then a few days later, you bring it up and you're like, hey, baby, you know what? Or she brings something up and you say, hey, you know what? Come, now that you mentioned that reminds me of that thing that happened last week. And then you start addressing it then. The impact is lost. It's old, it's stale. Okay? You have to get this stuff immediately when it happens. Right away. Okay? That's what has to happen. Because the impact is right there where you're addressing things right away. Now, if you're in a situation where you're having to address shit again and again and again, now that is just indication that you just got somebody who's just not willing to be on your program, who's not open-minded enough to be there, who's not enthusiastic and willing to, because there's some people who say they kind of mess up, but you can see their desire and effort to change, and that's great. But if they're continually screwing up in your eyes and they're not being proactive about doing something about it, then you should just dismiss them. Like, they're really not showing any sort of initiative to do better, to to improve what you're bringing to their attention. So keep that in mind. You know, keep it in mind that you have to be able to discern these things and and make your proper decisions right away. Yeah, but you know what, Brian? A lot of people do keep score. Men and women do this as well. They keep score emotionally. They use emotional, like, hash marks. You know, like when the guy's in jail, he's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the big diagonal 5. They keep emotional hash marks. They remember that shit and they hold on to it. Like perhaps like ammo that they might use later on or some shit like that. This is not the way. You see, that alleviates you. Okay, so this is another benefit. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Brian. When you hold on to these things, Okay, when you say like there's some sort of wrongdoing, something's gone askew, it's bothered you, you didn't bring it up, but you're gonna hold on to it because that's what just people do naturally. They just don't let shit go. Okay, they hold on to these things because it's made some sort of like emotional impact on them, and they just play it again and again and again. And maybe they're upset at the person, maybe they're upset at themselves because they didn't do what they knew they should have done. So now they're kicking themselves on top of it, and they're keeping this score going on, and they're building this up. What this is like tiny bits of cancer that they're just kind of holding inside, and they keep collecting these little bits of cancer and holding it inside, and maybe one day they're going to unleash it, okay? Or something's gonna happen that's a little bit bigger and then they're gonna fucking snap, and then all that shit's gonna come flooding out like crazy, and they're gonna hit her, or they're gonna do something drastic. That's not the way. This is not how things go. You're gonna get yourself into a lot of trouble. And it started with you keeping those hash marks, you keeping tally or keeping emotional track of how she screwed up, okay? By addressing it immediately, it prevents those little bits of cancer from embedding themselves in you, because it's fresh, it's open, you deal with it, it's cut, it's done, and dismissed, and then you move on. Okay, you don't keep harping on shit, because that's what again, like taking the score and embedding that little piece of cancer in you, that's what allows things to continue to build, right? That's what, it starts festering, it starts growing, and this is really what breaks things down. This breaks things down constantly in relationships, because they're not addressing shit immediately as it happens. Because what are you doing? Like, what did I say? Fear of confrontation, fear of making her upset, fear of losing her approval, and fear of losing access to her body. That's usually why guys don't deal with shit right away, because they're afraid of those four things. What if she doesn't want to fuck me anymore? What if she likes another guy? I can't deal with her crying. Or what if she yells at me? Okay, like all this stuff, and here, if you want to talk psychology, all that stuff is actually tied to something within you that has likely a strong relationship with your mother, because that's how moms are dealt with. Okay, don't fuck up, don't bring up any of this shit, because mom might get upset at you and lose approval of you. You might lose her love. There you go. A lot of guys, they're afraid of confrontation because they're afraid to lose the approval of the mother archetype that they've subconsciously attached to the woman in their lives. If you want to talk psychology, that's some shit that's fucking going on in a lot of guys, a lot of them. So check yourself, okay? If you have difficulty and one of those four fears pop up, or more than one, look at yourself and try to understand why it is that you can't act. Why did you brush that under the rug? Why did you ignore it? Why did you justify it to yourself? And it's because you're afraid. And that fear is what's going to prevent you from being a man. It's going to prevent you from being the man that you want to be. And really, that's just fear of the self. If you really break it down, it's being afraid of your true self, and afraid that others won't be approving of that. Oh no, they might dislike that. Who gives a shit? Right? But you're so afraid of losing her. You're so afraid of losing access to her pussy, which makes you feel good, because you're basically sitting there using her to like a fleshlight with a heartbeat. Okay? So you can feel better about yourself, like, yeah, I'm this guy. I got access to pussy. Nah. Like, that's like a really like youthful way of thinking about these things. So you're treating women like this, and also you got this thing about like not wanting to get your hand caught in the cookie jar. You know, and then when things go wrong, you're out there fucking some other woman and keeping it a secret from who? From mommy. You're keeping a secret from mommy because you don't want to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar because you might get a spanking. Jeez. Just, you know, if it's like that and you got a problem having this sort of shit, just admit that you like dominant women and just be okay with that. And be okay with you being the one that gets punished from time to time. You know, and if that's your truth, by all means, live that way. You know what I'm saying? But I think there's a difference between being a truly submissive man who loves dominant women and just being a male who's just a pussy when it comes to confrontation and dealing with his shit. I think there's a difference between those two, but only you will know. King Solar Power says that's another reason why males are scared to tell ladies what that male wants. Yeah, because it's like if what I want might be something challenging to her or something that she's not or whatever it is. It's like if what I want is not conducive with who she is or what she can do or what she can provide, then she might be gone. So I'll take what I can get, even though it's not really in line with what I want. Now, here's the thing. You might be shooting yourself in the foot because you don't know how adaptive she is. You have to risk losing her and telling her what you want. But you might be pleasantly surprised and she might say, okay, I can do that. Or I don't know how to do that. Can you help me? Can you teach me? There's a lot of possible outcomes, but they're so afraid of loss that they're not going to first understand what their wants are. Because that's what a lot of guys fail at first. They don't afford themselves the ability to want whatever the fuck it is that they want. And then if they do know, they're reluctant to share that. They're reluctant to tell people, this is what I want. And stand on it and be able to defend it. Okay? And understanding the reasons why behind that want, what's supporting that want. Okay? Which is why I stress to guys, don't have your wants centered around pleasure. Because that's just feeble. That's a feeble want. We all like pleasurable things. Okay? That's not something that should be on a program. Okay? That's not something that has to do with structure. Your structure should not have anything to do with pleasure. Okay? Because pleasure, it's amorphous. It's not like a quality. Okay? Pleasure is not a quality. So getting pleasure should just be a given. Okay? So this shouldn't be your want. If you're lacking in pleasure in your relationship, you've got other fucking problems. You've got way other problems because that should just be a given. That should be in there with like breathing, blinking, sleeping, shitting, eating. Okay? Fucking is part of that. Like it's just a given. Okay? So getting your pleasure the way you want it shouldn't be one of your high wants. That should be just a given that's already present. Okay? And if it's not there, you might just be with somebody that's incompatible. Okay? And then guys are afraid to lose that because they don't have any options. They don't know how, like any sort of game. And so they're trying to force a round peg into a square hole. They're like, it's gonna fucking fit. Or they ignore the fact that it's not fitting. And they're like, yeah, this is fine. Like whatever. And they just start jamming that cylinder into the square hole. And they're like, yeah, no. And people are like, dude, what's going on? I'm like, no, it's fine. It's fitting. It's fitting. Like it just needs a little bit of lube. You know? It just needs a little bit of lube. And they just force that shit in there because they don't have anything else to put in the square hole. So they're like, hey, I'm just going to make do. And, whatever she wants. And then they front to their friends like they're not some pussy whipped bitch who's just following their woman because they have no other choice. You know? What's up, Boxing? Good to see you, man. Yeah, man, can like a turn on when a girl says teach me. Yes, because that is an indication of a greater turn on, which is her willingness, her open-mindedness. Okay? That is like one of the foundational sexy things that a woman can have is a willingness and open-mindedness. Okay? And not quick to judgment, quick to resistance, quick to criticize, quick to assess. Okay? And just a basic, simple curiosity and understanding like, if I go a few steps in this direction, it's not going to mean the end of my life. I'm not going to lose a limb. Nothing bad is going to happen. I can try it out. Okay. You know, it's kind of like my two kids. I got one kid who's like super adventurous and the other one is super cautious. And the adventurous kid, like when they're little, like, will just eat whatever. Yeah, like put anything in front of them and they're like, cool, I'll try it. You know, the other kid, the most like basic palate and afraid to try new things, not open-minded at all, and it's a fucking pain in the ass. You know, and they're like, I don't know. They're already prejudging. So to have a prejudging mindset is a real turnoff because it connotes stiffness. There's a stiffness to someone who already has a judgment or perspective on something before it even happens. So to be with a woman who is open and having that you know, possibilities sort of mindset, that is incredibly sexy. So sexy. You're very much right, King. But yeah, what was I saying? But yeah, you know, because it's even better, you know, when she's open-minded, you better have something to be open-minded to, you know, because it's like you want her to be open-minded, but it's like open-minded to what? What do you have going on that she can be open-minded to? What are you going to teach her when she says, you know, teach me something? What do you got? You know? And really, yes, it could be new skills or a set of knowledge, but what's the sexiest thing is being open to them learning about themselves so that through you can teach them a different perspective on their own behavior, a different perspective on their own identity. And when you couple that with feeling, you teach them to feel themselves in a different reality. That becomes powerful. That is golden. Now, how that happens is, you know, somewhat complex, so we're not going to jump into that. But, you know, just kind of going in on the idea that, yes, it's fine to want a woman who is open and receptive and has a mind of open possibilities. That's very cool. But if you're going to want this, make sure that you've got something that she can relate to, something that she can step onto. Okay, not necessarily relate to, but something she can step onto that says, okay, he knows shit. He has things to share, and he can bring me towards a different level of myself. This is key, okay? Because, you know, all kinds of guys, you know, you hear like the popular one, oh, I want a submissive woman. I want a soft, receptive, vulnerable, submissive woman. Okay, do you have a reason why she should be submissive? You know, kind of like to Steve, shout out to Steve the Dean when he asked guys, why should a woman want to fuck you? In the same respect, why should a woman want to submit to you? Why should a woman want to relax that much in your presence? Why should a woman feel that vulnerable in your presence? Why should a woman be that open to you? If you can't answer those questions, like with real honesty, then have the balls to say, I don't know. That's the first thing. Have the balls to say, I don't know. And that's totally fine. What's not fine is making up reasons why you think she should. And if it's any kind of surface level reason, you know you're fucking wrong. Like if you've been listening to the right people, you know you're fucking wrong. You know you are. So it's not surface reasons. What are the non-surface reasons why a woman should relax around you, should be vulnerable around you, should let their guard down around you, should be willing towards you, should be submissive towards you? Why? Why you? Exactly, boxing. What qualities? What is it about you? Now, the hint is that obviously it has something to do with you. Obviously it has something to do with how you relate with yourself. Because whenever there's a relationship to the external as the reason why, that actually acts as a barrier. It acts as a barrier for her to relax into. There might be a certain level of that. Okay, so like you hear stories of say a very wealthy guy who can provide a certain type of lavish lifestyle, and the woman will be with him, but she's just being with him. She's not really with him. And that's where these problems happen, because she can relax to a degree, but she's not giving of herself. She's not letting loose into him. She's just relaxing into his lifestyle, which is not exactly submission. Submission is a state of free fall. It's a state of free fall, but with the emotional confidence that you're not going to go splat at the bottom. And that's really challenging for a lot of women, especially if they've been around the block. So yeah, there's a little bit of truth to when guys say, oh, you know, I want to get a woman who has less experience and like woman who's been around the block, whatever. Yeah, that's a potential thing that you can run into. It's a woman who's been around the block, she's been with a number of men, and a lot of times these males have fucked her over, weren't able to lead her in such a way that she could emotionally decompress, relax, spread out, and become vulnerable and just open up. Okay? She has not that experience, or it's opened a little bit and then it was fucked with. It wasn't managed right. It wasn't nurtured and then grown to where she can feel empowered in her letting go. She can feel grounded in her freedom. That hasn't happened. So then if that happens enough times, yeah, they're going to get jaded. They're going to look at you with a different eye to be a little bit more discerning than that naive 22-year-old. So I also get guys who don't have this skill. They don't have this experience, thinking, well, just being with a 22-year-old would be easier because they have less experience, so that I won't have as hard of a time because I don't know what I'm doing. See, but the thing is when you know what you're doing, you don't have a hard time with anyone, no matter what their age is. No matter what their age, if you know what you're doing, you don't have a problem. Ever. Ever. Men don't have problems with women. Period. Like I mentioned before in other videos, we will see it only for an instant. And it's dealt with immediately. And either that's just squashed, dealt with, rectified, punished, or if it can't be any of those things, then she's just axed. But either way, we only see it in a small instant. And if it happens again, then that's dealt with. And then it's up to the guy to say, well, maybe he's like a 3 strikes and you're out kind of guy or whatever. Or he's just like 1 strike and you're out. Either way, it's only seen for a little bit. And then it's done. Males will tolerate. They will tolerate that shit. Over and over and over again. You know, so this leads to a lot of scarring. This leads to women saying, fuck males, I don't want to trust any of you. Okay? So But the thing is, though, is that when you are more settled in yourself, you're not reaching to her. Like your energy is not trying to pull anything from her. Your body is not trying to pull anything from her. Your mind is not trying to pull anything from her. That gives her, at least at the onset, a certain level of trust, a certain level of like maybe a curiosity, like a precursor to trust, and saying, okay, so this guy is not, he's not like really trying to get anything from me. Okay, that's got my attention, because every male out there is trying to get something from me. Something. They're trying to consume something from me. And this guy, he's relaxed and he's just offering. He's just offering. And making it known within that offer of what's expected if you are to come over here. Or if I were to go over there as the woman. And it becomes very clear. And then it's like through that, the consistency plus, well, I mean, this is all within game, but plus having the game in such a way that is promoting her to, not promoting like job promoting, but promoting her to open up. Okay, encouraging, let me say that. Encouraging her to open up, encouraging her to relax. And through those, each stage of that, you're showing her more of herself. This leads to further relaxation, further vulnerability, further trust, further submission, further opening up the fence lines on her land so that she gives you more and more and more acres, as Steve would say. So it's like, you know, it's a slow process. It's not something that just like, boom, happens overnight. Like, yeah, attraction can happen very quickly. A woman can want to fuck you immediately. And you can fuck immediately. Okay? That doesn't mean she trusts you. She trusts you enough that you're not going to kill her if you have sex. Like that's about it, right? And these days, with how open women are with their bodies, that's not really saying much. Like if a woman, like, you know, wants to have sex with you, that's not really saying much in terms of trust. Okay? So just understand that. So trust, you know, deeper trust, more effective, more valuable trust. This sort of thing takes time. This sort of thing takes a lot of time. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why would I want to spend that much time with a woman that I just want to smash? Well, a lot of guys talk that kind of game, but you know what the reality is? A lot of you guys just want fucking relationships. I'm not criticizing you for that. I'm not criticizing you for having that want. What I will criticize you for is lying about it. Because you think that if you let it out that you're just wanting a relationship, not just wanting, excuse me, for wanting a relationship, that makes you a pussy. And that only men just out here fucking and, you know, smashing chicks. No. Men do what the fuck they want to do based on their principles, their codes, their rules, their vision, and their program. And a part of that is you having a relationship as part of your desires that are within that program, then that's what it is. If you just want to knock down women, fine. Like, I'm not here to judge the way other men live. You know, so if you're a man, I'm not going to judge the way you live. If you're a fucking male out here, I'm going to. All right? Because the men that I come across in contact with, they don't judge me. I don't judge them. We're not the same. Don't give a shit. Okay? So I know a lot of you guys really want relationships. A lot of you guys, you're not equipped even to be out here expending that kind of energy, knocking down women every weekend. You're just not. You're just not. You're just programmed to think that, like, well, I have to do that, or I want to be that way so that people will see me in a certain way. And that's just not right. That's just incorrect. This is not the way. So For you guys that want relationships, it's totally fine to want relationships. Like, it doesn't make you a weak man. It doesn't make you a cuck or whatever the fucking kids are saying these days, right? But, just want what you want, and it's totally fine. But, guys might be thinking, well, why would I want to spend so much of that time waiting for her trust? And you don't have to. You can be talking to a whole bunch of women if you want to. It's not that big of a deal. And the thing is about having a program with guiding principles, guiding codes, and a set of rules involved. This is what allows you to step her through these things, okay? Because while you're also waiting for her to trust you, you're waiting to see if she can pass through the filter layers. So the first filter is very coarse. And as you go through the filter layers of earning more of my time, my attention, my affection, all of that stuff, my just giving a fuck about you, okay, the filters become more and more and more fine. Okay, so the first one is like a fucking chain link fence. Okay, that's just to like keep the rats out and keep the wildebeests at bay. And then they get through that, then the chain links get finer, and then finer and finer and finer until you're dealing with very fine mesh. Okay, and it's like that's how they pass through. That process takes time. She's not going to get through to the fine mesh in one go, just like you're not going to get her trust in one go. And like I said, just because you're fucking does not mean she trusts you. She just trusts you to have her body for a night or a few nights or whatever, okay? And girls out here, they're throwing pussy left and right. It's really not that much of a commodity anymore. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And, frankly, it never really was. Because pussy hasn't really changed. Pussy is the same now as it was 200 years ago. Like, a vagina is a vagina. It's just our perceptions of value have changed. Our beliefs have changed. Okay? And what we perceive is what we believe. Okay? Or what we believe is what we perceive. So those things have changed. But actual pussy has not changed. Like, ever. Okay? It's just values and perceptions have changed. Okay? So it's totally fine. Like, whatever it is the fuck you want. Monogamous minded. Yeah, if you want to put that fucking spin on it. People love their labels these days. I'm monogamous minded. I'm marriage minded. That's what they fucking love that shit on Clubhouse. They talk about, they love labels. I'm a marriage minded man. I just say I'm a fucking man. This is what I want. That's all it is. I'm a man. This is what I want to get married. You don't have to put a label like, I'm a marriage-minded man. I'm a monogamous-minded man. I'm a poly-minded man. Like, reminds me that, well, I'll age myself with the Sesame Street. There was a cartoon about that. This guy was putting on different uniforms. And he's like, I'm a baseball uniform. I'm a mailman uniform. Whatever. If you're like over 40 years old, you know that part of the cartoon. But yeah, you don't have to go telling. See, that's the thing. Like, guys want to market themselves. They want to market them. Like, guys want to market themselves as some sort of symbol that they can tell women like what kind of guy they are, so that if the woman is interested in him, they know what he's about. Like, it's just a weird thing. Like, stop with the fucking stupid labels. Either you're a man or you're not. Those are the only labels. And how that man shows up is gonna be different for every dude. Everyone's program, your programs are gonna be different than mine. That's a differentiating factor. But either you're a man or you're not. That's it. There's nothing super complicated about it. If you want to get married, great. That's fucking awesome. Okay? I love that some men really want to get married. I think it's great for society. I think it's great for communities. I think that's awesome. I also think it's great that there's some men who just want to be bachelors for the rest of their lives. Right? Because the world needs people like this too. We need guys out here gallivanting, knocking bitches down and until they're in their 50s. Like that life is full of fantastic variety. And that, and like, if that guy is a man and that's what he's about, I don't give a fuck. That's his business, you know? But it's like, so many dudes, they get sucked into groupthink. Really, really bad. It's like this, I was reading about it, that it's a real like concept called fused identity, where guys with similar mindsets will band together and they will make decisions as a hive mind, like a bunch of bees, deciding on how they should move when it comes to women and what's right and what's not right. And I don't know how this occurs. I don't know how, like, maybe the mind in these guys, there's some sort of, wiring or something like that makes them more apt to become hive-minded, to become group thinkers or have fused identities with other guys with like mindsets. I've never been this way. Like, I've always been a loner type. I've always been like, I've never been like part of cliques and shit like that. Like, I looked at that and I was like, that is just the stupidest fucking shit ever. Like, in high school, I knew that with all these little cliques and shit like that, I knew before it even started. I was like a freshman in high school. I'm like, why are these people taking this shit so seriously? None of you are going to know each other after high school. 20 years from now, none of you are going to be friends. You're not even know who the fuck each other are. Maybe a couple people here and there, possibly. But I knew that shit wasn't going to last. But they get into these groups and they start dressing the same and talking the same and thinking the same and doing all the same shit. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with your brains? You can't think for yourselves. Think for your goddamn self. And I didn't care. Like, because I was already like a lone wolf type, I was already positioned as an outsider. But it was outsider by choice. Like, I was just in my own world. Like, I didn't give a shit. So it's of those that have a desire to be part of someone else's world or a collective world where they feel comfortable. It's like, why? Why is that giving you comfort? What sort of safety are you seeking? What danger are you seeking to get safety away from? What's up with that? So it's like these guys, they come together, these grown men coming together, talking about how to deal with women in like a group mindset. Like, they're having like group therapy together, saying how should we deal with women? And it's like, what the fuck? You're not men. You can't think without holding hands. And you don't believe me? Fucking go on any Red Pill YouTube video and look at how many comments are in there. Look at how many comments are in there with guys who are sharing like sentiments. They all need to hold each other's hands in order to, I don't know, feel seen or heard or of value or whatever it is. I don't know why these guys do this, but they're all holding hands. And I scratch my head wondering, what is it that draws certain guys to groupthink, to hive minds and fused identities? Look up groupthink and fused identity. It's a weird concept, and you see it. And maybe, like, social media is promoting this, like, kind of like algorithm working against us and kind of bringing minds together to think the same, and then we can all be just like categorized and shit. Maybe, I don't know. Or the algorithm's just reacting to what humans do already. Because we were banding together with groupthink long before the internet existed. So there's that. But guys, you can't be a man by holding hands with other men. Or males holding hands with other males. You're not ever going to be a man. You have to step away from the pack. You have to. Now, that doesn't mean you're never going to know other men. You're going to have plenty of acquaintances. You might have a few here and there that you might call true friends. Okay? But it's like this. And this older guy, many years ago, when I was just kind of like coming into this whole awareness thing, he said it's kind of like you and other men, it's like you're each in your individual foxholes. If you don't know what a foxhole is, it's like a military thing where they like kind of dig a ditch into the ground, and they've got like some kind of covering, and then there's an opening where you can like stick your rifle out. Okay, and so it's like you're in your foxhole, and over here is the other man in his foxhole, and you're both doing the shit that you need to do. And maybe occasionally you pop out, you're like, hey, or you hop on your radio like, hey, you good over there? You good? And then they're like, yeah, all right, are you good? All right, cool. You're still alive? All right, cool. And you go back to doing what the fuck you're supposed to be doing. You're in your individual foxholes. You're not there like reaching out, trying to hold hands. Your fingers are just grabbing. Oh, I'm here for you, brother. It's like, that's not how men operate. Men are not out here holding each other's hands. Males are, because you need to. All right, but that's not going to turn you into a man. Unfortunately, the reality is that the life of a man is a solitary existence, even if you're surrounded by people who care about you. And that's just the way it is. And the people who can handle that are men. The people who can't are males. And that's really like not really throwing shade. It's just describing what is. Okay? It's just what it is. Because here's the thing. The world will not be able to function without males. Just imagine this for a minute, okay? Close your eyes and you think of the Serengeti. Beautiful African plains, tall golden grasses, those weird fucking twisted up trees and shit. And you see like a sea of zebra. Just a sea of zebra. Okay? Now usually there would be just like maybe a small pack of lionesses just waiting there in the grasses, switching their butt in the air like cats do, waiting and like creeping along the grounds to get closer to the zebras. Now imagine that one pack was multiplied by 50. What do you think would happen to that population of zebra? It would go into fucking utter extinction. There's a reason why, just in nature, okay? In nature. Well, not the zebras, okay? The zebras are the prey. I'm talking, Brian, there's declawed, like passive lions, okay? And then there's real motherfucking lions. If they were all real motherfucking lions, it would decimate the population of zebra. Okay? There has to be more tame. There can't be that many predators. There's always going to be a balance of nature where there's a lot of prey and a few predators. If that scale was shifted, where there was a lot of predators and a few prey, or they were evened out, the predators would just destroy that balance. So I'm not trying to throw shade when I say, well, you're just not a fucking man. You're a male. Understand that the world is run by males. All the little cogs that keep this world going are males. If they were all free-thinking, standing on their square men, I think the world would have a lot of problems. There would be an imbalance of power, of nature. The yin-yang, where there's that little dot in the middle of each one, those dots would be way too big. And it would fuck up the balance of the way things flow. So just understand, yes, betas bring balance. Nature has to have this kind of balance. And that's just the way life is. Okay? Now, if you're male and you want to be more of a man, that's fine. You can take those dull claws and sharpen them. You can sharpen them. If you've been defanged, you can get grills and pop them in. You know, it's okay. These things can be manufactured. These things can be brought into fruition. Okay? It takes a lot of work. Right? All the guys that I've worked with, they bust their ass. In their brain, they bust their ass to get to where they want to be. Now, it's just a matter of desire, really. How bad do you want to change? Well, because a lot of us, a lot of guys are raised to be males because that is a predictable product. Men are not predictable at all. First of all, they like to fly under the radar. Okay? Secondly, they do what they want. So they can at times be like a loose cannon. Loose cannons are not good. Okay? They're volatile. So you need things that are predictable and easily malleable. Males are perfect for that. So most guys are brought up to be males. Especially if they don't have a man as a father showing them, teaching them, and molding them. Because a lot of times their father, if he was present, is one of those males also. So this has been a perpetuating thing for a long time, which is part of the reason why we have this great world that we have. Also the fucked up parts of the world, okay? But that's just what it is. That's balance. That's yin yang. But, you know, if you don't want to be that, your awareness has changed, and you want it to grow and shift and become something else, it's all there. All the tools you have are right there. It's certainly possible. I've got a track record that proves that it's possible. So these things can be done, okay? It just has to have the willingness, the openness to change. Just in the same way, when a woman comes to you with the willingness and openness to change, to become part of your program, because that's a change, okay? From her program to yours. There has to be that desire, that willful desire and openness to change. Now, in the male's part, it's saying, I don't like this shit. I don't like feeling the way I'm feeling. I don't like moving the way I've been moving. I want to think, feel, and move and be in a totally different way. I'm tired of it. That's when the change happens. So, you know, someone told me that change only happens when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change. And until you get to that shift, until you get to that point, some people call it rock bottom, okay? Where like, it can't get any worse than this. And if I change, it's going to be painful, but not as bad as staying right here. Then things will happen. You know, so if that's you, you know, you either have to wait, or if you're at that point, get on the ball. Because you only have up from there once you're at rock bottom. Okay? All right. I'm going to start rambling. So I'm going to cut this and get into some painting, list some beats. I got a nice sci-fi illustration that's come up, so I want to sink my teeth into that, talking about fangs. So if anybody has any questions, you can email me at thedominanceacademy@gmail.com. You can also check out my website at thedominanceacademy.com. And if you scroll through to the bottom of the description, there'll be two choices. One is a call feature. The other one is to have access to the monthly video series. There's already a quite sizable library in there already about dating, self-awareness, sex, relationships, and things like that. There's also a little bit of like BDSM 101 and power dynamics, and I'll be adding in other things as we progress with much more heavily like nuanced things about BDSM and power dynamics. So if you're into that sort of thing, you want to learn more, just shoot me a line. I can also be found on Instagram at the Dominance Academy _. You can message me there as well. If you get on a call, just remember the first one is always free. Okay, consultations are always free. All right, looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for dropping by, for everyone who has stopped by to listen, and thank you for those of you who are catching me on the replay. I'll see you next time.